There's this tweet by the awesome Fireship I keep coming back to with disbelief. It has open source, viable, popular alternatives for so many products, and recently it feels like the subscription economy is getting out of hand. I just figured I'm paying for probably 10 different services every month, and with AI platforms coming into our lives, these payments have tripled and quadrupled over the past year. My channel is literally called DevOps Toolbox. I build production systems for huge names in the industry. Just to add more fuel to the fire, yesterday I got this email from Bitly where I literally have one short URL and they want me to upgrade. That's it. I'm done.
I quit. I open my own hotel.
Please tell me I'm not alone with this reference. Anyway, if I want to keep making content about open source, bringing up alternatives to all these platforms, it's time I build my own little cloud. It's time for self-hosting. In this video, I'll go from scratch, aka Normie's world, victim mentality, corporate. Okay, you get the point. All the way to running your own cloud at home. No expensive big ass racks needed, just an old laptop or a small cube and a bunch of configs that create a secure, safe yet accessible network. By the end of this video, you'll have the know-how to host publicly accessible services as well as private, secure tunnel-based applications without spending a dime beyond your existing internet connection. URL shorteners, music streaming and TV shows, sync drives with terabytes of storage, and even your own private LLM, all in mom's basement. I mean, your house. Let's get our hands dirty, shall we? You don't need a huge rack or a server farm or NVIDIA GPUs unless you're planning on setting up an OpenAI competitor. Your little Pi 4, Zima Cube, old laptop, grandma's water-cooled gaming beast all work for that end. Here's what I'm using. Now, this box had been laying next to me on the floor, still unwrapped, for almost a year now. It has 8 gigs of RAM, a small CPU to handle most of what I need. This one actually comes with its own OS that helps with installing and running containers, but I'm not one to use a GUI hiding my precious logs. I'm also running my own NAS on the side, and while this video is not about the storage aspect of things, it does complement my setup because I'm tired of paying for AWS. I picked my set of tools for this session, but if you need inspiration for what you can actually do with your own private setup, Awesome Self-Hosted is an absolutely huge source of open source systems you can simply run yourself. You can do whatever you like. Also, a huge shout out to the self-hosted subreddit with almost 1 million weekly visits, tons of information and support should you need it. Okay, software time. There's a lot of virtualization options out there, starting from Proxmox, Kubernetes, its little more suitable sibling K3s, and even a new open source from the HH called Once, with a charm-powered TUI and all the bells and whistles. But since each of these require its own video and a small course to run through, we're going with the basics, Docker containers, mainly since most of the boxes you'll end up using already have them, and even if not, it's easy to set up. Right, time to work. My first target and the open source project I'll use to set everything up is also the final straw that got me here, a URL shortener. This one also makes a great example because we want it both public so that the shared URLs are accessible to everyone, but the main dashboard where we create them should only be available to me. In private. SHLink, or as I call it, Shlink, is an open source URL shortener written in PHP, which I'm not judging, nor should you. It's simple, it's powerful, and it works great. Before setting up, since I'm using my little Zima box, this UI is the familiar Casa OS. It has its own app store where I can set many self-hosted options like 2FAuth to have your own two-factor server, other options like OpenClaw, which I personally can't hear a single extra word about. But not only it doesn't have everything I want, we're not using GUIs, are we? We need control. So SSH into your box and take it from there. There are Docker containers currently running under the hood. Depending on your choice of Linux distro or self-host manager, there's going to be some type of simplification like this UI, helping us set ports and mounts and vars and image tags. But if this feels like a Docker Compose file broken into vibe-coded interface, that's because it is. If you really must have an interface, just install a proper one like Pertainer, which is a great option for monitoring these containers, especially when you're AFK. But otherwise, if you're comfortable with the terminal, which judging by the channel you're currently exposed to, I hope you are, just find the compose files in CasaOS. They're under this path, so we can make our own. Starting from a small test, we'll set the local IP as the domain to work with, unsecured at the moment, but don't worry, we'll get to everything secured for production. Docker compose up, there we go. Schlink is being born. Logs look okay, time to use it. The CLI is inside the container, so docker exec, container name, shlink API key generate is the first command we run, and keep that safe. That's how we're going to set our dashboard up soon. A short alias SL so that I don't have to keep running docker exec until we have a UI. And now SL has a broad range of options: create, delete, edit, list, rules for access, visit analytics, and lots more. So SL short URL create, and let's use dotb.sh as a not so great option because it's already pretty short. Nevertheless, there's a shortened URL. Test it and boom, we're good. Let's deploy to production. I'll use my test domain, devopstoolbox.sh, generously provided by dnsimple, add it to my setup. On top, we'll add the shlink web client, and boom, web client active. Let's connect it with the server using the key we generated earlier. Since the domain isn't yet set up, we'll still use the local IP just to see if things work. Nice, URLs listed and even monitoring visitors count. Last bit is the DNS, which should be sent to my home. Now this bit is tricky, so pay attention. Most of us are running a simple home network with our ISP's device, which is both a router and a switch. It's standing between us and the world. We're going to make it pass requests through a real-world load balancer, one that can take secure SSL encrypted requests, handle determination, manage certificates, and function as a reverse proxy. Now all that used to be DevOps stuff people hate touching, especially when working in small home labs, until the world got Caddy. There's a full-blown video dedicated to my lab for Caddy on the channel, but for now, a small setup would do. How small? Check this out. Open Caddy file, add the configuration, and proxy to my server. Yes, seriously. Now check this out. Before we can serve Caddy on port 80, my small server currently has its CasaOS UI there. So let's get rid of that by sending it to some other unused port. Now that it's ready, Caddy should be able to run. Logs are up, Caddy's working, but it's trying to set up my devopstoolbox.sh domain, which it can't see yet. To do that, we need to make sure the DNS sees Caddy. So the last piece of the puzzle, and a must for any home labber, is a port forward rule in your router that takes HTTPS on port 443 and forwards them as is to the server. A small explanation of why this is important, and I'll say the word DHCP so that those of you who are familiar with it can skip 30 seconds forward. We've already established your home router is also a network switch. It uses a protocol that auto-assigns internal network IPs to home devices, your laptops, iPads, smartwatches, smart doorbell, etc. It protects you so that the publicly available IP, when hit from the internet, can't really get to your precious devices. That's a good thing, and also why public Wi-Fi networks and Starbucks are dangerous, because people like me who are sitting there scanning for open ports on other devices. Anyway, this port forward rule, while essential, is taking a small risk by allowing a passage for requests. That's why we're keeping it HTTPS, and we have Caddy there to serve as the bouncer. Good. Moving on. Now check this out. We can now go to HTTPS public DevOps toolbox sh with a custom shortener. Yes, we're live. How about we make a special one with a name slag for my .files repo people keep asking for. So .files, save domain, let's go there and boom. Okay, front-facing Caddy, check. SSL termination, check. Public URLs, also check. What happens when I'm working remotely and would like to access the dashboard? Also, knowing the server isn't going to only serve a URL shortener, but a bunch of other systems coming up in this video. I need to create a secure tunnel for it. Luckily, the sponsor of today's video and a longtime partner of the channel is Twingate. Some of you who know it probably associate it with enterprise-grade infra and Kubernetes monsters, but it's actually also a fantastic solution for self-hosters. All you have to do is create a network, pick your deployment method. We'll go with an easy Docker file I converted to a Docker Compose, add it to your setup, and now our lint system is a single IP at the moment, so that's what I'm going with. Download the Twingate client for your system, log in, and There you go. Now I've changed networks here, but if you're in disbelief, check this out. TwinGate disconnected, refresh to the dashboard, and it's gone. You know what? Let's pick up my mobile that's clearly on a cellular network. Conveniently, TwinGate has a client for all platforms, including iOS. Once installed, same trick, log in and you're in. This time, using the locally resolvable domain I just added, making it easy so that I don't have to remember IPs. It really doesn't get any secure or as easy as that. I'm not an easy fanboy, but it says exactly that on the landing page. Security, performance, and simplicity, and there's no compromise. So we've got our shortener, Caddy in front, TwinGate underneath, and the road is basically open from here on. Just pick your next self-hostable application, and while I had too many options to install for this video, I choose something you're either going to love or hate, or if you're like me, both at the same time. A locally served LLM. Now, no, it won't replace your 7 billion parameters coding agent running on a field of GPUs, but if you're even somewhat worried about privacy and sharing every single private question with huge enterprises who are slowly eating away all the good things we love, you might want to hear the next bit. Ollama, famously allowing local LLM serving, have got a CPU dedicated lightweight option. Since I want to use my tiny box, let's go with that. Everything else is transferable to your beast of a server if you have one. I'll quickly install it the lazy way and have it pull the small thinker, which is a Qwen 2.5 3 billion parameters trained model. Not too bad for most things. And what do you know? It runs. It might not know the meaning of life or have a sense of humor, like at all, but for the type of power we're running here, I think that's impressive. But who wants to chat with a model through the terminal? That won't work. Meet OpenWebUI, the extremely popular open source web interface for chatting with LLMs. All you need to do is bring it home, point it at the model, and chat. And since this is where my local storage exhausted its resources, it's time to mount the local NAS, because you're not a real self-hoster without one of these boxes. I'm joking, yeah, any small SSD would do as well. I'm lucky to have one, so it mounts. I can now happily use a self-hosted web UI to speak to my self-hosted LLM. There's one thing that keeps bugging me though. I get privacy, control, flexibility, but is it actually worthwhile, financially speaking? Well, let's look at Hetzner and OVH Cloud, two excellent yet affordable options. To get a 4 CPU box with 8 gigs of RAM and around hopefully over 100 gigs of SSD, one would have to pay at least £6, €7, $10 a month. If you need a bit more disk like I have here, a modest 150 SSD, you'd pay around €16 a month. Let's call it $18 on average. I've even gave Hostinger a quick check, and while you can find some great deals there, it's more geared towards a full-blown cloud setup with websites, nodes, workers, etc. Bottom line, you'll end up paying roughly the same line we've already established. So what about the hardware, right? You are, after all, getting a box. Well, aside from the fact you can obviously, as mentioned, use old stuff you have lying around at home, a Pi 5 with 8 gigs of RAM is about $150 US. One-time payment, of course. Divide that by the 15 it would cost you per month to run the same box on a remote hosting platform like Hetzner, and you break even after 10 months. Solid math, Omer, great job. Now, power on average for this kind of a device is about £1 to £2, let's say $3 a month. So basically, in a year's time, the ROI is well covered. Assuming self-hosting is going to be a year's journey, numbers considered alone, I'd say it's a pretty good deal. The self-hosting journey has just begun. I'm wondering whether I should bring this little guy into the game and build a cluster, or go full Guilfoyle and build the son of Anton here. Either way, my NAS is on its way to replace all my private S3 use, and there's one open source project that's perfect for that. Watch Garage on this video next and thank me later. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.